Magic.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Mad Magic. I'm Mono, of course, here with my partner, Jay Thallid. Today,
Hola.
yes,
Spanish for
Bitcoin.
hello.
What?
Spanish for hello.
Oh, dogs for the layperson. Today we're talking Bitcoin, right? But we're definitely talking Magic the Gathering. But Magic the Gathering and Bitcoin seem to have a lot more to do with each other than one might think. We briefly touched on this in our very first show, and Thallid has talked about this in the past, and it sometimes makes my eyes spin. But there's something here, and something is happening or happening soon. It's actually going to happen before our eyes. Bitcoin is on a tear. We'll give you all the details here coming up in just a few minutes. And Thallid can explain it to us. This is really important because Magic card prices seem to react to what is going on with Bitcoin. And Thallid, you give the history and everything on that too. But first, give me a card you like. Give me a card you don't. Give me a buy and a ditch. What are your cards this time?
Well, this week I really am in love with Yagas Will. And
okay.
Regardless of the condition, I found some kind of lower end copies of Yagas Will selling for sub $100. And you could probably snipe some on eBay for even cheaper than that. Yagas Will, amazing card, one of the best cards of all time. It may have been slightly undermined by a card called Underworld Breach, but this is still a card that is always going to be a dominant card and a card that wins games on the spot. 2 colors and a black. Until end of turn, you may play cards in your graveyard as though they were in your hand. You may play cards from your graveyard as though they were in your hand, and if a card was to be put into your graveyard on that turn, it is instead exiled.
Right, so people are in Commander or whatever finding a way to dump 50 cards into their graveyard. You drop this down, you basically can stare at your whole damn deck and just pick out whatever you want and start playing it, right?
Yeah, and we're talking about like you're able to recycle these like hyper mana productive cards like Calling of the Weak and Dark Ritual and stuff like that, and generate like ridiculous amounts of mana. And in doing so, go through all kinds of there's so many ways to combo off with this card. It's ridiculous. At one point in time, it was from my day, it was at one point banned in the that point it was called the Type 2 format.
That's right. Yeah, because everyone was playing it. And you know what? I was looking at, I showed this just a moment ago on screen, but just look at it again. I mean, at one point, this card was just on $450 for one of them. This is back in the 2021 spike. Nowadays, we're showing average here about $165. I mean, this is a really, really expensive card.
And we're talking about $165 for a copy of it that is basically near mint. And if you want to go down the chain, you could even everyone knows what this card does that plays the game seriously. And so this is one of those cards that you could even acquire a foreign copy of for an even cheaper price. And it does the same thing. Everyone knows what it does. So at this point, I mean, like if you were to get like, I don't know, a German or a French version of the card, you could probably pick up a decent copy of it for like $70-$80. But as you said, you can currently get a near mint copy for about $150, which is, quite the discount from $450 that we were looking at when the helicopter money was dropping from the sky.
it just looks like if you're doing any, dredge kind of commander style decks, you have to have this. And right, and it's such a common potential strategy for commander, to be rooted through your graveyard, that I could see how this card will have a lot of resistance to having the price going down. I mean, people are going to need it. There aren't a whole lot out there, but and to your point, you don't have to. If you want to just play with it, you don't need one that's near mint. But still, it's had a ton of staying power. I almost wonder, like, if at the time, well, no, they banned it at the time, so maybe that was one of those things where people were like, "Screw this card," and then they lost them, and then when Commander came back and you could play it again, it's just interesting that how many other cards from this set also have a ton of value, or was this guy an outlier?
Oh no, Urza Saga was one of the most broken sets ever printed. We've gotten Tolarian Academy, Gaius Cradle, Yawgmoth's Will. The list goes on and on. Time Spiral. There are so many cards that had to be banned from this set because of their brokenness.
Yeah. All right. Now we love that one. What's the next one that we're not liking?
Well, although I wouldn't say I don't like this card because the card is fucking amazing, and it's a new card. I just like the current price, and it's a rare available in a current standard product, Questing Druid. And the reason I like this card is because originally you could probably when Wilds of Eldraine premiered, you could pick up copies of this card for like $1, maybe even cheaper. And it climbed all the way up to about $12 to $15. And I think it's currently selling at about $12 in near mint condition.
I mean, it just went nuts. I mean, look, it's saying here on mtgstocks.com, October 19th, $2.75. Okay, right? That's 9 days ago, right? And then we have on the 26th, $15. So in 1 week, this thing went up, 6-7 times its value. But now it's also then starting to come back down a little bit as well. Like, I don't know, are people just saying, I'll just go buy more packs or something? Are people opening them up and finding these things? I don't know if it's, but you just think, because it's just a rare though, right? Is that why? Like, there's just going to be too many of these things to justify keeping it at $15?
Yeah, and when you have a card like this, like reprints are going to be inevitable, and right now when you can pick up a rare, which is a rare today is a lot different than a rare 25 years ago. Like a rare today is almost the equivalent of an uncommon, like from the 90s, and you're talking about a card going for that price, and it's being utilized in so many special ways, and it's such a good card. It can often it often produces 2-to-1 or 3-for-1 in card advantage. Its adventure cost, its adventure is an instant. So at the end of your opponent's turn, you cast it, you get to untap, you get to cast those cards. You still have your druid on an adventure, so he's still castable next turn, even if you can't cast him that turn. And if you can, it's even better. Like, maybe your two cards are a land and a piece of removal. So you can remove a creature, lay a land, or I'm sorry, you cast your druid first, cast the removal that happens to be a non-green piece of removal. He's going to get the 1/1 counter and lay your land. I mean, it's the card's huge. It's currently being exploited in what was the exclusively blue and red modern deck that is so strong, and it's even replacing Murktide Regent as one of the best cards in the deck.
And people are going to just play with 4 of these things.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he's worth an additional 8 cards, with 4 of them in your deck.
Yeah.
At the end of the
cards broke.
Yeah.
completely.
We'll see. Wait for MTGA to give us the nerf in arena, right? As this, they seem to love doing that these days. So, okay, on to our main topic, Bitcoin versus or in tandem with Magic the Gathering cards. So lay it on us, Thalib. Like, you've got this wild theory. I would call it quirky. I would call it horseshit, except the data is proving out. So, I went slack jawed when I finally started to see this. So, why you talk about Magic and Bitcoin in the same sentence?
Well, people can say all they want that, rising tides raises all boats, but uh, in essence, just because Bitcoin is in a bull market, it doesn't mean that everything else is in a bull market. The huge correlation here, and the reason there's such a huge correlation between Bitcoin and Magic is because the first huge Bitcoin exchange was Mt. Gox. Mt. Gox was an acronym for MTGOX, Magic the Gathering Online Exchange. So that was used to purchase cards, digital cards for the Magic the Gathering online game that have actual value. And Bitcoin was what was used primarily for transactions to buy those cards. So there's a lot of people that on their hard drive, they just randomly happen to have you know, a shit ton of Bitcoin that they bought just because they wanted to in the future purchase some Magic cards for their digital Magic experience, right?
All right. So, timeline here. About what year were MTGO players using Bitcoin? Like, when did that start to start purchasing cards?
Oh, you're putting me on the spot here. I think it was about 2013, 2014.
All right. So
So
let me
we're
show
talking
you
about when
something here.
Bitcoin was.
Yeah, I was looking at the trends of how Bitcoin went. All right. So this is Yahoo Finance. And this is going all the way back to September-ish, basically, of 2014. A Bitcoin was just under $400. So to your point, Magic the Gathering online cards became one of the early adopters for using Bitcoin as its currency, right? For its commerce. And so people were scooping these things up back then, right? And that was, and at a time back then, I mean, look, even today, you can't go to Macy's and just give Bitcoin to buy a pair of jeans, right? Like that sort of holy grail of general day-to-day purchase of goods with Bitcoin or any really crypto has not really happened yet, right? But back when it was cheap, Magic cards were being bought and sold in Bitcoin. So what I'm hearing you say then is Magic the Gathering players disproportionately were purchasing Bitcoin compared to the rest of the global population.
Right. So you've got all these Magic players that were playing Magic the Gathering online, and they they were buying Bitcoin at a time when it was, I mean, I don't know the exact percentages, but it's at least 100x since then, if not more, maybe 1,000x. I'm not sure, but so these people are buying Bitcoin for dollars, and you've got an asset that is currently worth $35,000 per unit. And at that point, they were buying them for pennies. So,
yeah. Huh.
So you have a lot of those Bitcoin weren't spent, right? So you have these Magic the Gathering enthusiasts. They have these Bitcoin, right? They've gotten rich. There's so many Bitcoin millionaires and even billionaires that were a result of empty of Mount Gox and having just random Bitcoin on their hard drive because they were preparing to purchase Magic the Gathering online digital cards. So those people that held on to their Bitcoin, or years later, they're like, holy shit, Bitcoin is exploding. Bitcoin's $100 now. And then, holy shit, next bull market, Bitcoin's $1,000 now. And then 2017, holy shit, Bitcoin topped out at 20K. And then the most recent bull market, Bitcoin topped out at $69,000. What happens is you've got Magic enthusiasts. They're just diversifying their assets. And what are they going to buy? They're going to buy something that, I mean, yes, they might buy some stocks and stuff like that. But when you're that rich, you're probably going to be interested in some alternative assets that provide you some entertainment and enjoyment, right? I mean,
and you know what's interesting too is like when you start talking at 69,000, right? And until recently, what was past week or two, like it's been around 26,000 for Bitcoin, and now it's, as we said, about 34, 35. So it got up to 69,000, and then went down to, I mean, geez, it was clipping under 20,000 at some point during the pandemic, right? So it loses basically
50, it dropped to
15, right? So it loses 80% of its value. Okay.
Post pandemic is actually at post helicopter money is when it climbed to the 69,000 mark.
Right. So, and then it goes all the way down, loses 80% of its value at one point. But the thing is that Time Walk never actually lost 80% of its value, even in its bear market, right? If you think about the cards doing. So what's really been kind of fascinating about this, they become these Bitcoin millionaires. They buy all of these cards. Bitcoin tanks. They get to look at what they purchased with their Bitcoin, which is Magic cards, which has actually insulated them from a lot of, Bitcoin's drop that it had.
As well as I mean, anyone that's into investing and investing strategies know that the best investment strategy, besides probably dollar cost averaging, is diversification. So when you're taking an asset like Bitcoin that's exploding and going parabolic, and you're moving that into other assets, you're providing insulation for your investments. And that's exactly
what's really so disappointing that I always keep coming back to Wizards of the Coast and Cynthia Williams right now. And I just keep saying her because, she's the president of Magic. Okay. Right. Not to say there aren't other people that have influence, can do stuff, but that's it. The buck stops with her on this. And Chris Cox, who used to be and is now more like this, I think he's the CEO of Hasbro. He has his attention on additional things. And he has said publicly, we're happy to have her here. Magic's in good hands, whatever. But you look at your IP and talk about hiring a terrible CEO. Now, this is actually not personal on her, because what I say this about her is who a lot of potential CEOs, she doesn't know the frickin' game. She doesn't know the culture. Okay. And you could say that about lots of CEOs that come into place and are trying to do it. You have something now, an asset. And I know they don't want to talk about the secondary market, but something that you can stick your money into that's protected, right? Now you have an IP that is printing money, not only for yourself, but for your entire player base, and has this not only value that the cards are collectible and can earn money, but can be a safe haven for your money. And that they would not recognize that as such a critical component of what they have, and not increase the reserve list, so on and so forth. Because you can talk about all the whiny players that say, it's just a game piece, I want my card. How many more people come to Magic? Yeah. How many more people come to the game, though, just to say, I'm going to start buying these cards because I just want to protect my wealth. That's a whole nother component of people that could start to flock to the game. And hey, a lot of them could become players. And they're completely ignoring that. Not only are they ignoring that, with the exception of the reserve list, it seems like they're actively assaulting that benefit that Wizards actually has. And it's almost unique on Earth, right? I mean, these cards are gold.
And how many people come back to Magic not to play the game, but they come back as collectors because of the nostalgia, because they can hold something in their hand that they wanted to hold since they were 14 years old, and now it has such value, and it has so much rarity because of attrition and because of the condition of the card, and because of the fact that there's only so many of them made. There's only so many of this game piece that can be officially used in a sanctioned tournament that is legitimately produced. It was legitimately produced by Wizards of the Coast, and they could buy this card now, and it holds so much value, and they're destroying the IP by, well, they attempted to destroy the IP with the whole Magic 30 debacle. I mean, that was just asinine, and there's still a lot of repercussions from that, and you're still seeing like a lot of the cards well off all-time highs, and I believe it's the majority of it is because of Magic 30 and because of a loss of confidence in the reserve list. However,
I think that is reading the tea leaves. On our previous show, we talked about how they're exploiting IP, and Marvel was the big one. And from what we're hearing, it's not going to be 5 or 10 cards. Like, it could be a core set and expansions, right? Yeah. And I think that now is, and it's because it is as much as it annoys me to see Walking Dead or some of these other things. If it's just a few cards, it's kind of like, haha, oh, here's this little thing, right? But if you're now going to introduce 500 cards, right? Maybe, who knows how many they'll do. This is like, what was it? Rage? What was that game that was Marvel cards back in the day? Was it? No, it wasn't Rage. Rage was a competitor to Magic early on. What was the Marvel card game? Do you remember that? Overpower. They actually already did this, and nobody gave a flying rat fuck about Overpower. And right, so we've already seen, oh, it's a different time, it's new generations, blah blah blah. I'm like, talk about being late to the party again. How many of us are even excited about Marvel movies right now? Okay, Thanos is dead, the Infinity War is over. Yes, Marvel will continue on, but they're 7-8 years too late if they wanted to try this at all. And I think, and I know we have to post this, right? So we post it today and we will see. I think this Marvel set is going to be something that will haunt Magic the Gathering in a very negative way when it comes out, if they go very big on it.
See, worst case scenario is that they're going to drive players out of the game, and players are going to be disenfranchised, and long-term players are going to be disappointed with the destruction of the lore. Best case scenario is that there's just going to be a new influx of players that are interested in Marvel and interested in these other IPs. But think about how difficult it is to learn the game of Magic at this point with so many mechanics, and does someone who has a fleeting interest in Spider-Man really want to spend weeks of their life, like their months and years, mastering a card game because there's a Spider-Man card? Like, it just doesn't add up. Like, just you're sitting on a golden, like you have a golden goose right there in front of you. Use that IP. They haven't used the Magic IP. The only thing that Magic has been used for is to make Magic the Gathering cards. Where's the Magic movie? Where's the Magic TV show?
Now I need to apologize because I got us off onto a tangent of what we were talking about on our last show. But now staying in with the Bitcoin, it's now at 35. I would imagine that there needs to be some type of lag, though, right? Bitcoin's going up. It's had a big spike. I would imagine anyone who's got Bitcoin right now is not selling any of it, right? Like, oh my God, we're about to start earning some money again. And before, but it's interesting because with what they have with MTGO, and you can even say with the physical cards, if you were tempted to start getting rid of your Bitcoins, buy Magic cards. Because you're saying that, if they're tracking it anyway, then it's going to be going with it. It would be a safe place to spend your Bitcoin money.
So right now, okay, so here's what's going to happen. There's a 4-year cycle with Bitcoin that has been repeating. Nearly to a T, to the day since its inception. And there's a halving every 4 years. And the halving is basically the block reward for every 10 minutes every 10 minutes, there's a block reward for the number of Bitcoin that are produced. It's cut in half every 4 years. And every halving, it becomes more deflationary. Next up, in 178 days, we're going to have 3.125 Bitcoins rewarded every 10 minutes. 12 years ago.
That's the halving, right? You're going to be half as many Bitcoins are going to be rewarded. That's the halving and chopping in half.
Yes, every
so
4 years. So
would you say
that's the spark of the bull market. It's always been the spark of the bull market for Bitcoin.
Right, because overnight everyone gets this wake-up call that these things are getting rarer and more precious to be able to find, right? Because they're only handing out half as many.
Right. It's just like gold. I mean, there's only so much gold you can mine.
So we spent a lot of time talking about our magic bear market, but that was okay. It didn't mean there weren't buys to be had. And when things go down, it's gonna be good to pick up some stuff. I've been buying a lot of alpha cards, right? Even the comments and things like that. That was one of the first ones you talked about. So, but now we're saying, or are you saying, I'm asking you then, is magic cards, now we have 178 days, I think it was, we looked it up for the show, when the next halving starts, somewhere around there. So it's about 6 months. So would you anticipate then the end of next year, give it like 6 months after the halving, that magic cards prices are going to be like through the roof? If you had to then guess, how long is that lag, from everybody to earn a lot more money on their Bitcoins to actually start buying magic cards again, to be pushing the prices up, right?
Usually the new all-time high is a few months post the halving. It starts getting reported in the media, and it starts getting pumped by CNBC and stuff like that. So that's when we're going to get our new all-time highs, and that's when smart money is going to start to sell. As soon as the media starts talking about how much something is worth, as soon as you get in an Uber and a Lyft, and your Uber or Lyft driver starts talking to you about, like, hey man, have you heard about that Bitcoin and how much it's worth now? Like, that's usually the time to sell, and that's usually like the highs, and that's the time to start really diversifying into other stuff, because that's when the smart money is selling and the dumb money is getting in.
I had that exact thing actually happen in November of last year. Hopped into an Uber in LA, and the guy was talking about cryptocurrency. And I love how you say that. And that was right. I mean, that was the end of the party. However, we are saying here that we have a new party coming up, and to get ready. Now, look, for some people, the Bitcoin, it's already back to 35,000. That's close. That's half of its all-time high. And this is a Magic the Gathering show. So on one hand, it would be buy Magic cards, especially reserve list and really vintage stuff. But if you had to pick, are there any other tokens out there? I know this is kind of off when we talk about, but are there any other tokens that you would also then think that with Bitcoin going up, those tokens might go up too. You don't have to. I was wondering if you know any.
Well, there's always going to be some altcoins. There's something in the cryptocurrency scene. It's referred to as alt season. Whenever Bitcoin, which is the primary driver and it's the leader of all other cryptocurrencies, whenever it pumps, everyone's always looking for the next big thing. It's just like anything else.
Right.
So there's going to be some new coins. There's going to be some meme coins. There's going to be some. There might even be some legitimate projects, but you have to ask yourself before you invest in those projects, what is its use case and what makes it better than Bitcoin? And if it's not better than Bitcoin, and if it doesn't have a use case that is absolutely legitimate, why am I buying this and why am I investing into this?
All right. Well, we know our magic use case. And so let's leave it there. Keep an eye on crypto and then keep an eye on your Magic the Gathering collections. And now might be the time to start expanding. Yes. Final thought?
One more thing that I want to say is that you don't want to wait for the Bitcoin high to start buying Magic cards.
Yeah.
Right now is the accumulation phase. This is when the smart money is made. The money is made when there's blood in the streets. The money is made during bear markets. That's when smart money buys. Smart money doesn't buy Bitcoin at $69,000. Smart money bought Bitcoin when it dropped back down to sub 20K. And that's what I'm saying. Like right now, start accumulating your Magic cards, start accumulating your Bitcoin, and this is the time to buy.
All right. Jay Thalid, thank you very much. Always good chatting with you here, buddy. Everyone else, thank you for tuning in. We are coming at you every week with more stuff with Mad Magic. I keep thinking we're going to keep running out of topics, but things are just getting crazier and crazier. So thank you for tuning in. We'll talk soon. All right, everybody. We'll see you.
Magic.